by the government.
The government's own data tells us that in the first 8 months of 2020, fewer Canadians died than in the previous year. That's not my opinion. That's the government's data.
That data's not out yet. I'm positive that data's not out yet. This guy's probably reading the same thing that every other person is. No, not that. What the fuck? There were more than 7,500 excess deaths across Canada from March to the start of June 2020, which aligns closely with the 8,345 deaths caused by COVID-19. What are you talking about? What do you mean? It's fucking right here. Google. Oh my fucking god. Now we respond to a bunch of dumb asses.
Correct.
Life is good. Okay, so I've got...
I saw the first one that said I was born in Africa.
I know, that one looks like it's gonna be so stupid. Oh my god, I'm stoked. Okay, so this is like from City News, Edmonton. So context for everybody that's watching right now. In Edmonton, they just had like a walk for freedom, which is specifically according to their posters, it's anti, so it's end the lockdowns, end the fake science, and end the what was the other thing they said, and end the fake news. That was it. Those are their main contentions. So they gathered in Edmonton and were protesting essentially all of the lockdowns. I'm sure the anti-mask stuff and blah blah blah. So yeah, now we're just gonna see what the hell was going on. I want to see if I can get one of the speeches too and reply to one of the crazy speeches. It would be sweet. So
Sure. You should full screen it before you hit play.
oh yes, that's true. Yeah, they have torches.
Torches, candles, Africa's a lantern.
Yikes. Fear is a choice.
Fear is a choice.
That's always one of my favorite things, because like their whole like rhetoric is that like everyone's trying to make everyone's trying to like generate fear and stuff. Like the media's trying to generate fear, and like
right.
That's the whole idea. But I'm like, that's what you're doing. You're generating fear against like authority figures. That's literally what you're like. It just seems like the most asinine thing. Okay, so this one, I think this person is claiming some pretty wild shit in this one. I was born in Africa. Okay. I'm actually black on the inside. Okay, I don't get it.
Okay. Let's... Okay. Speaker at the Torch Marathon in Edmonton. I did not watch anything about this, so this should be interesting.
Very good.
Laura makes a good point here, everybody. This is Laura Lynn, Tyler Thompson.
Hey, everybody.
All right, so we got down there. It's a whole bunch of white, spoiled kids that all they do is shout and swear and whatnot. And they have no idea who Karl Marx really is. Hey, we're doing a picture here. All right, and all they do is they insult this lady here. They insult me, and they insult all of you. Why?
I don't know. I'm born in Africa. I'm actually black on the inside.
Yikes. This is gonna sound incredibly stupid to say. I don't even want to say it, but I want to like maybe say that like, you know, if she was born in Africa, which I don't know if she was or not, it's something we probably
we could probably be charitable and assume that that's true.
Yeah. Maybe she's trying to say like, oh, like, you know, because you know, there are people who grow up in like black neighborhoods and they, you know, say like, oh, like even though I'm white, like I grew up like black. I'm using heavy quotations here.
Oh, so you're talking about like cultural influences, like
yeah, and they're trying to say like, oh, like even though like my skin color is white, like I grew up like culturally. I don't want to say as a black person because that sounds really like stupid. I want to say, or like might give people the wrong idea, but like, you know, since they grew up in a predominantly like black culture, then I think that's maybe what they might be trying to relate it to, and that's maybe me playing. That's me strictly playing devil's
terrible.
Yeah. Oh, yo, true. That's me strictly playing devil's advocate, if nothing else.
Yeah,
and it's like,
sure.
It's like I want to believe because it's like older people, you know, the lingo and the terminology that we use today, they don't use, or they just don't want to adopt.
They actively fight against it. They say political correctness. That's their whole meme.
Right. And so it's just like if you're gonna say stuff like that, then it's like, okay, well, it's like when you say like, oh, I was born in Africa, I'm black on the inside, it's like you're asking for it. I think that like you're asking to be made fun of.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's also just completely ignoring the fact that you have like white privilege being that you like present as white, obviously. So there's a lot of privilege that just comes along with like existing in society as a white person, just literally just looking white.
Yeah, definitely.
You won't be like subjected to like just random racial like biases that people have on the bus by being white, usually, for the most part, right? Like or whatever, right? That's just like a random example, but like if you go into a grocery store with your hood up and a backpack on as a white person, are you as likely to be like immediately like pointed at as someone who may be a potential thief or whatever kind of thing? There's a bajillion examples that we could like string along here that you get from just being like having white skin.
Right.
That's definitely not being accounted for when she says stupid ass shit like that.
True. Very fucking true.
Bro. Yeah, that's some wild shit.
Did you hear about the people that were outside? I can't remember what it was, but they were trying, and I think they were outside like a justice hall or justice building trying to protest to get the pastor released.
Oh, that would have been in Alberta too, right? Because they jailed the fucking is it a pastor or whatever? They jailed
he was
church guy.
He was a pastor. Yeah, he was a pastor.
Amazing.
Because he broke the COVID rules. I saw that on Facebook. I was going to send it to you. I just didn't get a chance.
Yeah, I haven't really looked into it too much. I just saw that Hinshaw was talking about it, I think, or something in one of their press releases about how he like just repeatedly kept going against it or whatever, and they pretty much had no choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like if you're going to be like a dumbass like that, then it's like, I don't know, the famous quote from the Joker movie, you get what you fucking deserve, right? Like,
truly.
Like, I'm sorry, but it's like from my understanding, they tried to be nice, quote unquote, like nice.
Well, yeah, the thing is that they're walking a really, really fine line, the government, because they want to implement these restrictions so that they incentivize people to act in a certain way, but also they don't really want to enforce a bajillion fines and stuff, because the general public is not going to take that in a very good way either, especially if a lot of people have contentions with their rules or whatever.
True.
Or a lot of people are going
I also think fines is a cop out. I think, like, I honestly do believe this. Is like, I think everyone should get like a first warning kind of thing, like quote unquote first warning, like, hey, you shouldn't be breaking the rules. Like, let's smarten up kind of thing. And if you get caught, a second or a third time, it's like, if you get caught the first time, it's like, hey, yeah, you know what, you spend like, let's say like a weekend in jail or something. Not that you
are we
get, like,
talking specifically
like
only for like breaking COVID rules, or are we talking about all laws?
COVID rules.
Okay.
Like specifically for COVID, like not all laws, obviously, but it's like
because I would say that should probably scale with the severity of whatever you're doing.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Like, if you get caught the second time breaking COVID rules, it's like, hey, you spend a weekend in jail, or you do community service or some
kind of
right?
punishment that fits the crime, essentially.
Yeah. But it's like, if you break it like 3-4 plus times, it's like, yeah, you should get a heavier sentence. And I don't feel bad about the pastor being locked up. Like, that's
no, not at all. Yeah, it seems like they had
punishment that's fitting of his crime.
Yeah, it seems like they tried as many like avenues as they possibly could. They expended as much like resources on dealing with him in a proper way as they could, and he just kept denying essentially and incentivizing people to do things that were like gonna negatively harm the community and everybody, right? So it seems like for sure, like it's a classic play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah, true. 10%.
Hell yeah, it seems justified, but I don't know how long this video is. It doesn't say, but we'll check this one out. Hopefully this is. I'm trying to find a speech one.
My thanks to each and every one of you for exercising your courage by being here today and exercising your charter freedom of expression.
I think that's a Trump flag, right?
Oh,
is that what you saw?
I think it was a Trump flag. Don't forget to full screen it as well.
Oh,
Can we dissect this right now before we
Yeah,
before we
go
continue
further.
this.
Sure, yeah.
People who say that the government locking us up is quote unquote against our Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Ooh, should we just look that up right now? That'd be fun, right?
Like, people who say that literally grinds my gears, because I'm like, it's not a part of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I'm like, have you read the Charter of Rights and Freedoms? We had to read it in grade 10, 11, and 12 for social.
Fundamental freedoms. Everyone has the following fundamental freedoms: freedom of conscience and religion.
Yep, doesn't go against that.
Doesn't go against that right off the bat. And maybe they would make an argument that they can't gather.
They can't gather for religion, but people can do it online.
Doesn't deny you the right to your religion at all.
Exactly. So
it's across the board, no gathering for any like So it's not even going to be it's not bullying anyone in particular.
Yeah, no one is being excluded from that. It's a blanket statement across everyone.
Yeah, and I don't think it f***s with your conscience either, though. That's kind of a very vague like catch-all word, but
yeah.
So they might be able to just like try and worm their way around that, but I'd have.
I wouldn't think so.
Freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication. I don't think that they're being suppressed here either. They'll claim that they're being suppressed because of like Facebook fact-checking them and stuff like that, or deleting.
That's not being suppressed, though.
Yeah, miscommunication, but that's not.
That's stopping the spread of misinformation.
Yeah, and that actually has nothing to do with even like Canada's rights. That has to do with companies and their rights to TOS. Terms of service.
Oh yes,
it's Facebook terms of service stuff. That has nothing to do with like your. If you want to sign up to use Facebook and stuff like that, or any Twitter, blah blah blah, then they have the right to essentially, if you're using their programming and everything kind of thing, then they have their terms that they set for whether or not you should be allowed on there or not, and that's completely in their rights to do. Freedom of peaceful assembly. Well, they are gathering.
They are gathered, so that's not against that.
Yeah, it seems like that's fine. And I believe they even got the rights from the city to do that. You have to get like permits or whatever. So
yeah, you do have to. Yeah, you do have to get that approved before you do that. Any sort of like gathering or assembly, you have to get approved. Yeah. And when you don't, it's technically a riot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or sorry, it's an unlawful gathering.
Oh yeah, that would be what it would be. Yeah. Okay, so and then the last one is freedom of association, which, or did I skip over one? Freedom of peaceful. Oh no, yeah, peaceful assembly. Freedom of association. Freedom of association is one of the most basic rights enjoyed by humans. It ensures that every individual is free to organize and to form and participate in groups, either formally or informally. Doesn't seem like that one's being infringed on either.
They're gathering. They're part of a group. The group to protest the lockdowns. So I would say negative. What are they? They're 0 for 6, 0 for 5.
I think so, right? Yeah. And then after that, democratic rights, which has nothing to do with any of this. None of this infringes on their rights to like to vote or anything like that. So we can just skip right over that one. Mobility rights. Every citizen of Canada has the right to enter or remain in and leave Canada.
Doesn't stop that. Well. Nope,
they're allowed to come back in. Right now, they're doing like a thing where when you come back from traveling, they put you in, so you have to have a test or whatever.
You have to isolate for 14 days.
And it has to be a proper positive test or whatever. And if you don't, then they'll send you to this like quarantined facility essentially, which is like a hotel or whatever. And they kind of keep it hush hush where you're at or whatever. And then you have to stay in there until you get your positive test back that's proper. But you're still allowed to come into Canada and remain in and. I don't know.
Well, you're not allowed to leave because
you do seem to be allowed to leave Canada. Like, if you have quarantine,
if you're in quarantine, you're not allowed to leave.
But that's a temporary thing, right? It only lasts for like 14 days. So it's not even. I would argue that it's not.
I'm strictly just playing devil's advocate here. Like, if they really want to say that we were like infringing on their charters of rights and freedoms, then it's like, yeah, technically you're not allowed to leave Canada, but that's because it's a fucking health crisis.
Yeah, and actually that wouldn't have anything to do with like Canada stopping you, anyways. That would have to do with the other countries not accepting you.
Yeah,
so it has nothing to do with Canada's like restricting your freedoms in that way, anyways.
Yeah.
So. Every citizen of Canada and every person who has the status of a permanent resident of Canada has the right to move to and take up residency in any province. Sure, that seems to be fine still. And to pursue the gaining of a livelihood in any province seems fine. Limitation the rights specified in subsection 2.
Well, you could try and say that one might be infringed on a little bit, like to pursue the gaining of a livelihood in any province. Like if you're trying to get a livelihood like in a restaurant. I mean, restaurants are open right now, but when
I mean livelihood I think is a proxy for like a job or like an income. I think.
Yeah, but you obviously can't pursue, like, say if you're a chef, you wouldn't be able to pursue a job as a chef because of COVID, because restaurants are closed down, right?
No, you can still. Restaurants are still the restaurants were never like fully closed. They were just closed for like in dining, and they actually are open for in dining now, anyways.
No, at one point they were closed. Like, not anymore. Like, it was like back in like December.
Restaurants were never closed.
April and Chad had to close. Like, they weren't allowed to be open even for takeout.
Really? Oh, I must have missed that then. Was it just? Oh, it would have been like non-fast food places or whatever had to get kind of thing.
I would assume so.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. I thought that all restaurants were allowed to do takeout still. But I guess if there was some point in time where they weren't, then shit. Okay.
So but that was back in like before December even. So it's like you would have to really stretch on that one as well.
Yeah, that seems for sure. And the best argument that you can make maybe is that the government is not helping people out enough who are forced to like not be able to work, kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
I could accept that argument, but that's never the argument that's presented with these anti-mask rallies. It's their solution is just to like undo everything and let people live their lives the way they want to and let COVID just run rampant. So that's like.
I mean, hey, natural selection, am I right?
If only it didn't negatively affect everybody else who was trying to be
exactly
responsible.
Yeah.
Exactly. One portion of their brain that seems to still be working.
I survived polio. COVID means nothing to me.
Free. Oh my.
Kills me.
I don't think any of this affects that at all.
No.
Legal rights. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person, and the right not to be deprived thereof, except in accordance with principles of fundamental justice.
Yeah, justice isn't being rained down on anyone.
Yeah.
So
I think this is just like actual. Yeah, it's legal rights, so it's very.
Yeah, but
wordy.
Like, no one is being persecuted for. I mean, I guess the pastor is, but he was given ample opportunity to make amends and to follow the rules and the laws. And what happens when you break a law, you get. Yeah, it's like what happens when you break a law, you get punished.
Yep.
And honestly, from the amount of time, like I have spent a decent amount of time in and outside of a courtroom, both for personal and non-personal matters.
Yeah.
Judges, and I want to say the justice system, and this could just be because I'm a white person and I'm, but I've seen it play for both parties. The justice system is, I think it tries to be fair for everyone and to give everyone like a reasonable doubt kind of thing.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, and like even in Peace River, like there is a certain group, or not group. There's a certain set of people in Peace River that have been charged with like multiple accounts of theft and having a firearm when they're not supposed to, and having drugs on them, and blah 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 blah, and they get released.
Yeah, for sure, and that's based on like the system being less reformative and more punishment kind of thing, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
Obviously
and so it's
the reformative part of the justice system is not doing its job properly, or maybe it's possible that these people might not be able to be reformed. But I would assume probably the former, not the latter.
I would say that's a fair argument to be made, and I wouldn't really have any counterpoint against that, because the only counterpoint against that is they can't be reformed because just on who they are, how they are, and where they are in life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And beyond that, it's like that's that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm sure there's definitely I think it would be unreasonable for me to claim that like there are no people that like exist that just can't be reformed. I'm sure there's some people that exist that like are beyond
referendum.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Definitely
a thing that exists. I think it's probably, and this is just like super like no evidence, but I think it's probably actually a very, very small portion of our population.
I would probably say that's accurate. Granted, we don't have any evidence, but I'd say just based on the findings that we have as people living day-to-day lives.
I think most people like that have problems with reformation are people who are struggling with probably poverty and money issues. That's going to be a huge chunk of them, and a lot of their problems are just like literally not being able to afford like the main means and stuff. And then what that ends up doing is it puts people into desperation, right? If you have to choose to steal a loaf of bread or die, you steal a loaf of bread, and that's not unreasonable at all. That's completely reasonable. If that is your only options in like a hypothetical or whatever, then stealing the loaf of bread can be justified, even though it does have like a negative, like I'm not controlling for the fact that does have a negative effect on who they steal from and stuff like that too, but just for that individual person in what's the word, in a vacuum.
Right.
Yeah. It would be like a reasonable thing for them to do.
Yep.
And then there's also like a bunch of people like that have mental illnesses and stuff that will cause them to do things, to be violent or whatever and stuff like that. And for them, it's really just a case of getting them like proper therapy, which once again, this is a poverty thing once again, right? Like,
yep.
And the medication and stuff like that, and exactly, and putting them in a good system that will help them out, and by no fault of their own. This is like chemical imbalances. I think a lot of this stuff has to do with that. Yeah, and I think a lot of people that like even have grown up in like violent households and like have adopted those like violent tendencies can be like retrained and stuff too. That would probably be like a difficult one, but given the proper resources, I think almost all of these things are possible.
I think even beyond that, like if like I know like people, we're going to get into a bit of a heavy topic here right now.
Yeah.
While we're on the topic of like violent tendencies or people that need to be, or like mental illness and stuff like that, people lash out.
Yeah.
People who look at like pedophiles, for example, right? I have a
okay, sure, yeah. This can be
this
can be a pretty racy topic, and I'm probably gonna end up saying things that people are gonna totally disagree with, but I really
probably
hope that
same
people
as well.
think about what I'm saying, and like especially in a vacuum and stuff, right?
Yeah, I think like pedophiles, I think I would classify someone who has like pedophiliac tendencies to be probably mentally ill, because it's like how many times in your life have you looked at a child and been like, you know what I would like to do? I can count on the number of times on my hand, because that number is 0.
Yeah, I actually wonder if that's true. It does seem like a curious question to me, but I bet you there is probably some evidence for this if it's true, right?
And then it's like
continue talking while I look this up.
And so it's like I want to say it's probably closer to a mental illness or some sort of like sickness in the mind that triggers something inside of you that makes you want to act in that way.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like when I did psychology in high school, we did psych 10 and 11.
Yeah.
We briefly talked about stuff like this, and we watched some clips on people who were incarcerated, like pedophiles who were incarcerated.
Yeah.
And they're like, and part of it could have just them playing the part and crying wolf, being like, oh, like I felt bad for my actions. But I think a lot of them who do it, like you aren't openly a pedophile. You do it behind closed doors because it's A, not accepted by society, or B, you're ashamed by it, or a mixture of the two.
Yes. Yeah, for
right. Sure. And so if it's a mixture of the two, I would assume since you're ashamed of it, it's not something you want to do.
It's not something that you want people knowing you're doing, if anything. Or maybe it's something that you don't want to do too. Yeah, that's probably true.
Right. And if that's the case, I have a firm belief that, people think that like pedophiles should just be like strung up and castrated and stuff like
people
that.
People have a very, very hard visceral reaction to the idea of a pedophile. Mm-hmm.
They do. And I could get it. Like nobody wants to think or see children being hurt.
Yes.
Right. So I think I can empathize, maybe is the word I'm looking for, like empathize with the rage that people feel about it.
Yeah. But that's the thing though, what you're getting at is that like if we want to advocate for a system where we want to like reform people who are like mentally ill and stuff like that. And by the way, just real quick note here, the American Psychiatric Association has included pedophilia in its diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorders. It does count as a mental disorder.
Since 1968.
Yes. So now this might be contestable. I don't know.
That's a long time. I mean,
I'll have to do more research about this. Maybe there's really good arguments as to why it's not. But just on the fly looking it up, it seems like they do consider it to be that. And if that's the case, and it is a mental illness, then we should, by virtue, have to include pedophiles in like reformative, like solutions.
Yeah, like
I guess, right?
think that they can get treatment and receive the right amount of like therapy. It's like
Mhm.
I don't want to maybe like equate this to something else, but like people who are like addicted to sex and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right? Like they go to therapy, they get treatment, they have programs to help them so that it doesn't destroy their lives,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah. Also, important to note too here.
Mhm.
I think I said it here, but where is it? Not all pedophiles are child molesters or vice versa. Child molesters are defined by their acts. Pedophiles are defined by their desires. So when we're talking about pedophiles, we're not talking about people who literally rape child.
Yeah. Yeah,
the
sure.
word
I
pedophile.
think most people when they hear like pedophile, they think.
That's why I wanted to clarify, because if I say
Yeah.
I am pro reforming pedophiles,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that I'm excusing the acts that can be done by child molesters.
Yeah.
And also the fact that like pedophiles may also like engage in like child pornography, which also has a like a negative effect on the world, right? Because in order to produce that child pornography, you need to harm a child. So consuming content,
right, or someone has had to harm a child, and you have to come across it.
Exactly, yeah. And so like consuming that content is actually like causing harm. If that makes sense. You can very easily like draw a line there. So I don't think I would excuse those actions either. I'm just saying that like I think these people are still worthy of
redemption.
Of trying to, you know? We should still try.
Definitely.
But that's definitely going to be something that I think a lot of people are not going to agree on with me for sure. That's a hard one to come to. So yeah. But sorry, I think I cut you off a little bit. Do you remember what you were saying, or did I fucking yoink you?
I think my point was pretty much done. Like, you know, if we're talking about like reforming people, I think, you know, kind of like no matter what I have a firm belief system that everyone should probably be given a second chance no matter what they've done, because at the end of the day, you have the right to do basically whatever the fuck you want, and no one can really stop you, in my opinion. It doesn't
as long as it doesn't infringe on the rights of others. Yes.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you want to say that, like,
if we're talking about you have the right to do whatever you want kind of thing, then I would say you have to quantify that by saying as long as it doesn't infringe on the rights of others.
I mean,
if you're just going to say
infringe on the rights of others and be an asshole, that's like you can theoretically you can do that. Like, yeah, it just makes you a piece of shit.
I'm just more talking about like if you're saying the very specific statement of you have the right to do whatever you want, whereas if you were to just say you can do whatever you want. Right.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Then that's fine. Like, yeah, technically anyone can do whatever they want, really. Like.
Yeah, like you basically, you know, you have I would say a right to live your life however the you want.
Yeah, you have like you have moral agency over yourself.
Yeah, and you know, if you choose to do fucked up shit in your life, then you know that's your choice. But that being said, I don't necessarily think that should condemn you to being locked up for the rest of your life or receiving the death penalty. And obviously people
depending on the action,
who
right?
are on the receiving of that act are obviously going to feel differently about that, but it's like, you know, that's not like it's not necessarily true. And I think no matter what, like people should be given some semblance of a second chance no matter what they did.
I agree. I think that having the system where we like jail people for X amount of years kind of thing as like a punishment thing seems completely fucked. Like, I know we've come like derailed hard off of our original topic here.
We have, definitely.
But yeah, like it seems completely fucked to like just have this weird system where we're punishing people like they're fucking children, as if that like teaches them anything, right? I know that like having a like a system designed where there is like consequences designed into the system, like, you know, to kind of like mitigate it. Part of it is like to de-incentivize you from wanting to do the crimes. For sure.
Yeah.
But I think I would much prefer a system that that is very strictly based on reformation. So essentially do a crime kind of thing. Oh, well, you did X crime. Well, then you need X reformation kind of thing, which takes approximately 13 months, but maybe more will, like, you know, like generally it takes this long, but like, you know, and then put them in the system for that kind of thing. And it's I think you would probably save a lot of money too, because putting somebody into jail and having to house them in this facility for like X amount of time and pay and like give them meals and stuff like that, and then when you instead just have somebody that like is forced to like go to therapy or whatever, it would probably, I could be wrong, I'm just completely spitballing here, but I would assume that like you could probably like have a pretty comparable like price that goes along with that, you know? I don't think that it would, I'm assuming it wouldn't be unaffordable, I guess. And it would probably
Right.
be like a net positive on society because you're actually introducing these people back into society, hopefully, or some amount of them that they can get a job again and they can pay taxes, right? Instead of just literally being a full burden and only a burden on the taxpayer. If that
Right.
makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely does.
Of course, you have to
Also, I see
demonstrate that these people
Morgan
are
entered the
informed.
chat.
Morgellini,
Hello.
rotini, fettuccine. OP.
Are you just streaming on Discord or are you streaming on Facebook?
No, we're on Twitch and Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah, I'm just I'm screen sharing on
Yeah.
on
So
Discord.
let's go back to the Constitution there, since we derailed heavily.
Truly, yeah. Let's see.
So we just did number 7, and we agreed that it's not being infringed on. So search or seizure, everyone has the right to be secure against unreasonable search or seizure. That's obviously not happening.
Has nothing to do with this, yeah.
Number 9 has the right not to be arbitrarily detained or imprisoned.
So this is the one that they would probably try and claim the most infringement on,
'cause-
right? Because they think they're being wrongfully detained. But I think the word arbitrarily is the word that's important here. Arbitrarily means that it's like hard to draw a line
Yeah.
that distinguishes something from being very particular. So for example, like what it means to be like a black person and what we define as like black people would be maybe like a line that might be defined as arbitrary, because for example, like you have, let's say you have like a father who's like how would you describe this, like whose ancestry is like all black essentially, right? Like, and then your mom is like white, and then you come out and you're a baby that's like a mix of 50-50. Most people would define you as black, right? Like just because of like your visual representation. I think this is the thing with like Obama, right? And like, and the line keeps going. Like you could keep having like a bunch of white mixture and get you down to like 10% or less kind of thing of like black ancestry or whatever, right? And you would still like visually represent, or visually not represent, you would still visually like present as like enough black that people would just call you black. You would still be considered black over white, which is weird, right? Because like you would assume that. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? Like why it's arbitrary?
No, it does. No, it does.
Yeah.
It does. 100%,
So I'm like, essentially, I'm just trying to explain like what the word arbitrary means, like with an example. It essentially means that there's not like a really hard line that says, oh, you're 25%. Oh, then you're definitely white. You know, like or whatever it is. Like arbitrary is just like it just means that there's not actually really a line, and that we kind of just define these things like openly.
Yeah, and I'd say that's pretty common sense. I mean, if common sense was so common, everyone would have it. But it's pretty common sense, like in the middle of a pandemic, that you're being arbitrarily detained or quote unquote imprisoned to protect not only your own health but the health of those I would say around you. And
well, the argument that I was trying to make was essentially that like arbitrarily detained pretty much means that like you would be being detained for no reason that like seems to be consistent with the law, or no reason that seems to like actually exist, I guess. Arbitrarily being detained, I would assume, probably means something along the lines of like you being detained just for like political narrative or something, right? Like something that's an arbitrary reason. But these aren't arbitrary reasons. We can scientifically back why we're detaining you, right? Because we had a rule that you shouldn't be like traveling or whatever kind of thing. And if you do travel, then you're gonna like, these are the rules that are laid out. You're gonna have to come back, and the consequences of you traveling during a global pandemic is that while you could have been spreading the things while you're gone, you might spread it when you come back here. You might bring in new variants. This is really dangerous to the population. So like it seems pretty reasonable that we're gonna make sure that you don't have those variants, that you don't have COVID, and that you're not gonna come back and be a detriment to society. So you have to come back with a positive test or make a positive test. And if you don't have a positive test, or one that we recognize as positive, we're gonna like detain you for like a small amount of time until we can get that test, kind of thing. And that seems reasonable. That doesn't seem like arbitrary to me, you know?
Right.
Yeah. It seems like it's backed by evidence and science, if that makes sense. And like good reason,
definitely.
I would say. Like there's good reason being harm reduction, essentially.
I would say so.
Yeah. So anyways, my whole point is that like this thing just seems mute because of that. Like it doesn't seem like this is arbitrary. Just like to explain the whole thing though.
Yep.
Yeah.
Number 10, that doesn't really, I think, affect this other than the pastor who was arrested. But he was informed promptly of the reasons that he was arrested. I'm assuming he is retaining counsel And to have the validity of detention determined by way of habeas corpus and to be released if the detention is not lawful. So, I mean, yeah,
Sure.
they could try to argue that one, but the fact that they literally came out and was like, yeah, we gave this guy like 3+ chances and he still decided to
Yeah, he's a risk to like the public,
break
the
the
general
rules, yeah.
public health, right? And I would assume that
Yeah.
there's laws to back that. So it seems like his reasoning for being arrested seems to be valid. So I would assume he would not be, or seems to be lawful. So I would assume that the release would not happen. And as I would totally be like, I'm totally for him having like a lawyer and proper representation, and everything, right? All of those things should definitely be happening. And if they're not, then this is definitely a right that's being broken for him. But I don't think that's the case. I don't have any reason to believe that's the case.
Yeah.
Any person charged with an offense has a right. Oh, yeah. So this is all the same kind of stuff. Tried within a reasonable time, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So this seems all... I think we can probably skim over most of this because this doesn't really have much to do with like lockdowns and stuff, you know?
Yeah, I realize rights would not be subject to any cruel or unusual treatment or punishment. I wouldn't say that one's anything.
Cruel, unusual treatment or punishment. Yeah, I would assume that this doesn't really have much to, like, treatment or punishment. This is legal stuff still, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, legal rights. Yeah. So, seems like more of the same. Because that would be in context of the legal system, then.
Yeah.
Incriminating evidence.
But it specifies. No.
Party or witness in any proceedings who does not understand or speak the language. Yeah, that's
Nope.
fine. Okay, equality rights.
Equality
How about
rights.
this one? Every individual is equal before and under the law and has the right to equal protection and equal benefit of law without discrimination. Without discrimination on race, national or ethnic color or origin color, religion, sex, age, mental or physical.
I don't think anyone's being discriminated.
Discriminated.
It's discriminated.
Verg.
I don't think anyone's being discriminated based on any of those.
Doesn't seem like it, no.
Subsection 1 does not preclude any law, program, or activity that has its subject the... I don't even know how to pronounce that word.
Big ass word.
Amelioration of conditions of disadvantaged individuals or groups, including those who are disadvantaged because of race, national, or origin.
More the same.
Yeah, no. Official languages of Canada.
We can just skip right over
no.
this one because we know that one's not going to get on.
No. This entire thing's fucking...
Yeah, I'm just gonna skip right over that.
Minority language educational rights. Nope.
Nope. Yeah, that's not being on either.
Enforcement.
Anyone whose rights or freedoms, as guaranteed by this charter, have been infringed or denied may apply to court of competent jurisdiction to obtain such remedy as the court considers appropriate and just in circumstances.
Nope.
Seems fine. Yeah, I don't think that's being infringed on because that's just a right for other things.
General Aboriginal rights and freedoms not affected by the charter. Nope. At least to my knowledge, no Aboriginal people are being affected by COVID negatively.
Not by the the lockdowns might affect them in like some negative way potentially, but I don't.
But I mean, the lockdowns are affecting everyone negatively.
Yeah, I don't think
or
it's
not everyone, but I don't think they're being
disproportionately
targeted.
affected. That would be the
yeah
word. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Application of charter. Charter applies.
Nor do any of the white people who are like protesting this give a shit about any of that anyways. So that's not what we're even arguing about. Application of charter.
I don't think this applies anywhere.
Parliament or legislature me. Yeah, this is like. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go.
What's being infringed on?
It doesn't seem like any of the things are being infringed
right.
on. The way that people understand rights and freedoms seems to be just super... I'm positive that any examples that people could give us of charter rights specifically being infringed upon would be them just misunderstanding how those rights like apply to them or how those rights apply in general.
Yeah, I would say that's safe.
Very good.
Like safe to say.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Back to where we are.
We continue.
Your charter freedom of association.
Yeah, we fucked
Your
up.
charter freedom of peaceful assembly.
That seems fine.
These are our God-given freedoms.
God-given? Whoa, buddy.
Man-given, not God-given.
Man-given, baby. Those are afforded to you
heavily-
by government systems and bodies, not by
Correct.
by God.
It's like
Fucking law.
go over to China, see how many freedoms you have over there.
Truly. Yeah, it would differ depending on each country you're in, which is not based on God, right? It's based on
Exactly.
on
If it was based on God, everyone would have the exact same laws.
exactly, yeah. Or at least anyone that worships God in some degree,
Yeah.
Or that implements it in their society would be.
They do not come from Dina Hinshaw. They do not come from the Calgary Police.
Fool!
These are God-given freedoms, and we are proudly exercising them.
They don't come from our medical officer or the police. Conveniently doesn't mention that they actually come from a governing body called the federal
Literally.
government.
Today, as
So it's like,
Canadians,
to be fair, he's not wrong. They don't come from Dr.
You know
Hinshaw
what?
directly.
That's
they come
true.
from an assembly of government officials.
Is this
You
in
right.
Edmonton of,
right? So it's like, you know what?
or
They're
Yes, it's
they're
in
1
Edmonton.
for 36, I think.
Truly. You know what? I'm gonna be real right now. I didn't expect to watch this video and actually hear anything truthful. I'm absolutely what's the word? What do what do English
Dumbfounded?
people say? I'm absolutely gobsmacked.
I'm cobs.
And absolutely no.
As Kyle would say, you've been no.
Got him.
Oh,
Amazing. Okay.
You've been
oh,
known.
there it is.
There it is. Very good. Okay, we continue.
I applaud your courage because, there's been statements issued by the police that they're going to issue tickets. And I listen.
Yeah.
I listen carefully, and we want to be friends with the police. I agree with what Brad said. The police should be protecting our rights and freedoms.
And the public health.
And the chief of police, he said a few things. Two of them I found interesting. One, he said that this was just temporary limits on our constitutional freedoms.
Well, that's a lie, because I wouldn't even consider this to be like any kind of infringement or limit.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that probably wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I think that police officer is just dumb.
Temporary. We're into our ninth month. Our ninth month of fear-mongering. Our ninth month of people dying because they didn't get their cancer diagnosis on time. We're into our ninth month of elevated rates of suicide and alcoholism.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Nope, that's a lie. That's a straight f***ing lie. Headline, suicide deaths in Alberta in 2020, fewer than what was recorded last year. Get fucked. Owned, bitch. Fucking got him.
Actually, I think that's where I gotta end the stream anyways. I have to make supper still.
Very good.
Rip.
Yeah, man.
This is the 13Army signing out. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Peace.
Very good. We continue.
Very good.
Two of them I found interesting.
Joke's on you,
One, he
he's
said
still
that this
here.
was just
Got
temporary limits on our constitutional freedoms.
Alright, well,
Temporary.
I'm gonna go make my supper now.
We're into our ninth month. Our ninth month of fear-mongering. Our ninth month
Wait a
of
second. I missed that the first time around. He's fear-mongering right now.
Our ninth month of people dying because they didn't get their cancer diagnosis on time. We're into our ninth month of elevated rates of suicide and alcoholism and drug overdoses. Millions of people thrown into unemployment. These are not temporary. If these were temporary restrictions, I wouldn't be here today, and I don't think you would be either.
That is, what do you mean? I'm gonna laugh so fucking hard at all these dumbasses when the restrictions get lifted in like a fucking year. Eat your fucking own words. Oh my
If it was just 2 weeks to flatten the curve, we weren't holding the rallies back in March and April. That would have been okay. I'd support
Everyone
it 2
says
weeks.
this point too, like the 2 weeks thing, and like that would be true if we had ever said that in Canada, but we didn't go off the 2 weeks to flatten the curve model. We like if we did that, we would have locked down like New Zealand did. That was what they actually did, right?
Yeah.
We picked like the middle route where we like half locked down things, but we allowed most businesses to still like kind of do the initial lockdown we had was pretty hard, but after that we just like opted for like a more like half lockdown, where they try and like selectively lock down only certain things. There's no way that of course it's not going to be like a 2-week thing then. We're just like prolonging the suffering and pain.
To flatten the curve, but we're into our 9th month. So I'm sorry to disagree with the chief of police, but these are not temporary restrictions.
Everything is temporary, bitch.
What was made was that the place to fight this is in the courts, not on Stephen Avenue, not at Olympic Plaza. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to disagree. The answer is both.
Fist fight COVID, bitch.
Court action from the time you file the court action until you get a ruling.
True words have never been
It's 2
spoken.
years if you're lucky, probably 3 years, and quite often 4 or 5 years. And I hope that the chief of police and Jason Kenney and Dina Hinshaw will understand that we're not going to give up our charter rights and freedoms for 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Luckily, you don't have to.
I had the honor and the privilege some years ago to defend the free expression rights of some very courageous students at the University of Calgary, and the university was threatening to expel them if they continued with their peaceful pro-life advocacy on campus. The university found them guilty of non-academic misconduct, so we took the university to court. And 3 years later, we got a court ruling saying that the university was wrong. So we beat the University of Calgary. From the time of filing that court action until the day that we got the ruling, it took 3 years. Do you know what the students did during those 3 years? They kept on with their advocacy on campus. We've released a report the Justice Center has. It's called Flying Blind. It's on our website, www.jccf.ca. We released this on Thursday. Hundreds of hours of work from our legal team and our researchers with input from medical doctors went into this report. So I encourage you to look it up. Flying Blind. Subtitle, Government's Hasty Decisions to Lock Down Canadians While Damaging the Economy and Public Health. We rely in this report, we use government data, government statistics. That's what we're relying on, and we've got far more footnotes in this than you'll see in any of the modeling coming out of Alberta Health Services. So everything is referenced and footnoted, and it goes back to the government data.
Yeah, but
now,
it's
we've been told since March,
every single
when
thing
Jason
that I've
Kenney and
seen
Dina
thus
Hinshaw
far
released
has
their
been
modeling, saying that as many as 32,000 Albertans would die of COVID-19, even with lockdown measures in place. They said that 32,000 Albertans could die. Nonsense. Fear-mongering. Jason Kenney has publicly compared COVID-19 to the Spanish flu. Does Jason Kenney know anything about the Spanish flu? Does he know that it killed between 20 and 50 million people? Does he know that it killed millions of young, healthy adults in their 20s, 30s, and 40s? To compare COVID to the Spanish flu is irresponsible fear-mongering. It's the same fear-mongering we're hearing today.
True, it is the same fear-mongering we're hearing today. Got him.
So I gotta ask you a question. With this unusually deadly killer on the loose, the way the politicians want us to believe, do you think that in the first 8 months of 2020, from January to August of 2020, do you think that with an unusually deadly killer on the loose, do you think that we would have had more Canadians dying or fewer Canadians dying?
It depends on the restrictions implemented by the government.
The government's own data tells us that in the first 8 months of 2020, fewer Canadians died than in the previous year. That's not my opinion, that's the government's data.
That data's not out yet. I'm positive that data's not out yet. This guy's probably reading the same thing that every other person is. No, not that. Oops. It's Canadian, he was saying? Was it Canadian?
The government's own data tells us that in the first 8 months of 2020, fewer Canadians died than in the previous year. That's not my opinion, that's the government's data. So,
what the fuck? There were more than 7,500 excess deaths across Canada from March to the start of June 2020, which aligns closely with the 8,345 deaths caused by COVID-19. What are you talking about? What do you mean? It's fucking right here. Google. Oh my fucking god.
Oh my god.
It is very interesting though too, because you have to be so accepting to some degree of the information that these people are willing to peddle to you, but you also have to equally have like a large amount of like irrational skepticism also. So it's weird.
Go home and research it, but you don't.
Yeah.
gets more interesting.
Oh baby.
Gets more interesting.
I'm ready. I'm
In the
interested.
first 8 months of 2020, the government data tells us there are fewer people dying of cancer, fewer people dying of heart diseases, fewer people dying of stroke, fewer people dying of lung disease.
Wait. Didn't he just say earlier that more people were dying of cancer? Didn't he literally say that in the... No, he did at the start of the video. He was like, we have so many people dying of cancer.
You're at 642, go back.
Okay, yeah.
Month of fear-mongering, our 9th month of people dying because they didn't get their cancer diagnosis on time.
But yet the cancer deaths are down.
That's not what he believes, though. He doesn't.
I don't even know if the cancer deaths are down. I just wanted to point out the fact that he's arguing both sides of the coin.
Yeah, but
they can't both be true.
He's saying that they're higher, and he's saying also that the government's saying they're lower. So he doesn't believe they're.
That's what I'm saying. I'm pointing out the contradiction. Yeah. I mean, I have no idea. Let's find out, baby. Okay, so it's a lie again. It's a lie. Once again. 82 is what the 2019 number was. And
the keyword is when he says the government. Like when he says
Data,
that little rant, the government data. That's when he's like, I'm about to lie. So
So,
the government data says.
this makes it more believable. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Oh my God.
Dude, this guy, literally, so how many lies has he just straight up told now? Like, this is like the 5th time. Literally anything he said has been a lie. Like,
So 642.
Fewer people dying of heart diseases,
should I just
fewer people dying of stroke.
Should I just auto-assume that everything he says is a lie and just be uncharitable as now that he's lied like 5 times? Like, do I really need to look up every one of these other data points? I don't think I do anymore. I don't think it matters.
Well, someone comments and asks, you can.
They can look it up themselves. It takes like 5 seconds.
Fewer people dying of lung diseases, fewer people dying of pneumonia, and fewer people dying of influenza.
Okay, so the pneumonia and influenza part are very, very like obvious ones that like you brought up already. Yeah. What do you think happens when you have a pneumonia or influenza which is spread through air particles the exact same way that COVID is spread, and you have a population that has adopted masks by, I would assume, at least like more than 50% of like Albertans or Canadians are wearing masks, right? Like even like that amount, even like 10% of people wearing masks, even if like mask wearing wasn't like really great, but they were still happening, you would still see a decrease in the spread of things like pneumonia and influenza, especially when you consider the fact that pneumonia and influenza are less contagious than COVID-19, less contagious, which means that like masks are going to be even more effective on them. So yeah, of course there's no f***ing influenza cases and deaths. Of course there isn't. Like this is just like a byproduct of when you implement things like masks and social distancing. Of course.
In total, 10,295 fewer deaths from those 6 illnesses in the first 8 months of this year.
I want to look it up that it's wrong. But we already know that it's wrong.
Combined with, at that time, 8,795 COVID deaths. Every death is tragic. It doesn't matter whether it's from COVID or cancer or lung disease or heart disease. Every death is tragic. But what the government's own data is telling us is that we had 10,295 fewer Canadians die from these cancer and lung diseases and so on at the same time that we had just shy of 9,000 people die of COVID. So, not my opinion, it's the government's data. The other harms of the lockdowns that this report delves into are the cancelled surgeries. Thanks to
the canceled surgeries and stuff are probably problematic, but I don't know how to solve that, like in a way other than like maybe that we implement such harsh lockdowns that the hospitals like have like no COVID cases because we just eradicate it, and that allows the hospitals to like do what they would normally do, right? But that calls for harsher lockdowns, right? So you can't have both. You can't like let COVID spread and then complain about how like the hospitals have to deal with COVID, right? You can't have it both ways. There's only so many nurses, doctors, etc., etc. I think that they're like our hospital beds or whatever. I don't remember the exact number, but I think that at any given time, like they can't even like put like they don't even have enough beds for like 1% of our population. I'm pretty sure, like at any given time in hospitals for like our actual population. So like it wouldn't take much of anything to overwhelm the system essentially.
Lockdowns, 200,000 Canadians had their medically necessary and in many cases life-saving surgeries cancelled. Shame. That 200,000 doesn't even include the number of people that ordinarily would have had a surgery scheduled and did not get the surgery scheduled. On top of the 200,000 cancelled surgeries, we have 500,000 Canadians did not get their MRIs and CT scans in a timely fashion. 500,000.
I don't know if I want to believe anything he says now because everything else has been a lie, but even if those things are true, I would say that those things are probably problematic, but like I said, you need more lockdowns like in order to fix that problem. Yeah. So what they're doing right now is not going to actually solve the problem.
Scientists in the United Kingdom estimate that the delays in cancer diagnosis and delays in cancer treatment in the United Kingdom will kill as many as 35,000 British citizens. And when you transfer those same numbers to Canada, we're looking at as many as 18,000 Canadians dying unnecessarily from cancer.
Did he just adjust that for proportional
This is what
population? That would be a completely incorrect way to do that. You have to base it on how the countries are that would be a really, really complex math equation. You'd have to base it on like how many people are specifically having their cancer treatments or whatever like postponed and stuff like that. I highly doubt. I don't know. Let's see. Brain. 37.59 million. It seems like that's probably what they did. My number's like a bit off. I have about 20,000 instead, but I also didn't like include all the decimals, so that's probably it. Anyways, I highly doubt that the math is good.
British citizens, and when you transfer those same numbers to Canada, we're looking at as many as 18,000 Canadians dying unnecessarily from cancer. This is what the governments will have to answer for in court. We've got increases in suicide because of unemployment and from unemployment alone, we have at least an increase of at least 680 more people that have killed themselves because of rising unemployment. That does not include the likely even larger number of people that are killing themselves because the government is forcing and imposing social isolation, taking people away from their friends, their family, taking people away from their churches, their 12-step programs, their sports leagues, their bowling, their hockey, their soccer, connecting with friends at a restaurant or at a pub. Don't kid yourself. Suicides are going up because of lockdowns.
Don't kid yourself.
Drug overdoses.
Just ignore the data.
In British Columbia, 5 times as many people have died of drug overdoses compared to COVID.
I think that's correct.
In Alberta, more people have died.
But that doesn't mean that the drug overdoses are product of the lockdowns necessarily, and it also means that actually like the number of people dying of COVID being less is actually just a testament to how effective the lockdowns have been.
Of drug overdoses than COVID. Every death is sad. Every COVID death is sad. Every drug overdose is sad. But the politicians have a duty under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms to actually take a hard look at the harm. Jason Kenney and Dina Hinshaw came up with fear-mongering, wildly false, erroneous, exaggerated models in April, telling us that 32,000 Albertans would die of COVID even with lockdown measures in place.
At this point in time, the virus was still fairly novel. So we still had like a lot of stuff that we didn't understand about it. So a lot of this data would just be like their best guesses based on as much as they knew at the time. Of course, if we know more now, then of course it's going to be like we're going to be able to model better.
Doing more good than harm. I have yet to see the evidence, because speculation is not evidence. You can assert that the lockdowns have saved lots of lives, but if you don't have any science to back it up, and they don't,
wait a second, but they have.
You're just operating in the realm of...
No, they have. We know that because places that didn't implement lockdowns had like massive amounts of deaths. Yeah, the states were f***ing bad. Italy, right off the f***ing bat, was like, didn't have enough, like their hospitals got so f***ing overwhelmed by COVID initially that they had to like literally decide who lived and died. We know that like the worst case scenario definitely exists. Like this is like, I don't even, like, what even is this point?
Speculation. So the time has come, and I'm pleased to announce, if you didn't see the news release this morning, that the Justice Centre has filed a statement of claim against the Alberta government. And this is not the first. This is not the first, because before Christmas, we'll be suing British Columbia. We'll be suing Saskatchewan. We'll be suing Manitoba. We'll be suing Ontario. And for the first time in 9 months, the politicians are actually going to be required to answer some questions. I want to ask for your help for this. We're in the process right now as I speak.
Give me your money.
The manager is interviewing people.
Oh, give me your money, all you gullible f***s.
And our lawyers are paid entirely by the voluntary donations that the Justice Centre receives from Canadians. So if you're in the crowd today, and if you support these court actions, if you want to see them succeed, we can't do it. We've got a very, very strong legal team. We already have 7 staff lawyers, but these are not our only cases. We're fighting lots of tickets.
Money.
And
money.
If you get a ticket, don't pay, plead not guilty, get in touch with the Justice Centre. We're going to do our best to represent as many people as possible in defense of their freedoms. Do not stop exercising your charter freedoms while court actions are in process, okay? Because we cannot give up our rights and freedoms for 2, 3, 4, 5 years waiting for a court ruling, and we're not going to. So if you want to see these court actions succeed, donate to the Justice Centre, www.jccf.ca.
We can't succeed without your
website,
money.
sign up for our newsletter. No amount is too small. Whether it's $1,000, $500, $200, $100, $50, $25, $10, no amount is too small. Go to our website and donate so we can pay for
They're just
these
fucking robbing you.
so that we can sue.
Getting you all riled up so they can take your fucking money. Amazing. It isn't right. Oh, it's an MLM.
Closing, I got 2 thoughts. One is, always remember, it is better to die standing than to live on your knees.
Truly.
Is that quitters never win.
Quitters are shitters.
Never quit.
Give it up for John Carpay! You know what? We welcome the ticket.
Spread the wealth,
'cause
baby.
We're gonna challenge jurisdiction and we're gonna win.
We're gonna win.
Yeah, exactly. So we know why we're here today. We want to go and make some noise and be loud and proud. And the funny thing is when they tell us to stand down, we rise up.
Beautiful. Yeah, that was like 99% crock of shit. Have a good one, amigos. Thanks for popping by.